Imagine this, a horizon painted in molten gold, the Atlantic breathing salt and destiny. Far in the distance, sails shimmer like ghosts in the dying light. The people of Seville crowd the docks, shouting, praying, trembling. Another fleet has made it home. The ships are swollen with treasure, gold bars stacked like altars, silver coins spilling from barrels. The scent of salt and spice hangs in the air, thick and sweet. Spain, proud, devout, unstoppable, believes it has harnessed heaven itself. From the mountains of Potosi and Zacatecas, rivers of wealth flow toward the sea. Miners, chained by fate, dig into the heart of the earth while priests whisper blessings above them. Every vein of silver glimmers like divine proof that God has chosen Spain. Between 1500 and 1650, more gold and silver crossed the Atlantic than the world had ever seen, enough to fund armies, crown emperors, and build cathedrals that touched the sky. Each galleon that appeared on the horizon carried not just treasure, but belief. Belief that Spain's power was eternal, that divine favor could be measured in coins, that an empire could buy its way to heaven. But gold is not a blessing. It is a mirror, one that shows not who you are, but who you've become. Why farm, when silver sails home each month? Why weave, when silk and sugar arrive from across the seas? Why innovate, when destiny feels guaranteed? The rhythm of work began to fade. Fields were abandoned, workshops emptied, and the heartbeat of Spain slowed, lulled by the soft, dangerous music of wealth. Merchants turned to nobles, nobles turned to dreamers, dreamers turned to debtors. The coin that once symbolized glory began to erode the very ground it glittered on. Inflation rose like a silent tide. A loaf of bread doubled, then tripled in price. The poor could no longer eat, and the rich could no longer count. Foreign bankers, Genoese, Flemish, German, lent money to the crown at a price that drained the empire's veins. And still, the celebration continued. Every time the treasury ran dry, another fleet appeared on the horizon. Every time faith wavered, a new shipment arrived, as if God himself refilled the coffers. But wealth spoils the way sugar spoils teeth, slowly, sweetly, invisibly. When the treasure fleets arrived safely, church bells rang across the empire. When storms claimed them, silence filled the streets. Every Spanish heartbeat was tied to the ocean. When the sea rose, Spain rose. When the sea fell silent, so did the empire. Spain had mistaken wealth for wisdom, faith for foresight, glory for strength. And in that moment of golden blindness, the curse began. For a time, everything glittered. The empire stretched from the Andes to the Philippines, its banners kissed by every wind. In Madrid, gold poured through the streets, coins clinking, priests chanting, artists painting saints with halos of real metal. Spain believed it was untouchable, eternal, chosen. But beneath the gilded altars, cracks began to form. Wars devoured the silver. Italy, Flanders, the Mediterranean. Each campaign burned through fortunes faster than the mines could produce them. Every victory was paid for with the promise of another fleet. Every prayer was followed by another loan. In 1557, the crown declared bankruptcy. Then again in 1575, and once more in 1596. Each time, the empire gasped for breath, then smiled as if nothing had happened, because the ships were still coming. And as long as the sea glittered with silver, Spain refused to see the truth. The bankers of Genoa, Augsburg, and Venice held Spain's future in their ledgers. Even kings bowed to men with ink-stained fingers. The wealth of the world had made Spain rich, but not free. The people felt the burden first. Bread became a luxury. The price of grain soared higher than the church towers. Farmers abandoned their fields, not from laziness, but despair. What was the point of growing wheat when gold bought everything? Artisans closed their shops. Merchants watched as imported goods replaced their craft. Peasants sold their last tools for food. The middle class, the beating heart of every strong nation, disappeared. Still, the illusion held. The palaces glowed brighter than ever. Feasts filled the nights, hymns filled the cathedrals, and processions marched through the streets. If you listened closely, though, beneath the choirs, you could almost hear it, the sound of something cracking. And yet the crown did not change course. Honor replaced logic. Labor became shameful for nobles. Trade became sin for the devout. Gold, and only gold, defined worth. But gold cannot feed a child. It cannot till a field. It cannot invent, or imagine, or dream. The Inquisition, born of fear, strangled the mind of a nation. Writers burned their words before they were written. Philosophers vanished. Explorers turned into executioners. The Church, once a light of salvation, became a wall around thought. Spain had built cathedrals of marble, but prisons of the mind. And inside those prisons brilliance withered. Other nations, England, the Netherlands, France, began to build with ideas, not gold. They forged ships, traded, invented, questioned. While Spain prayed for silver, others created their own. The empire's wealth became its cage. Every coin a link, every shipment another chain. Spain no longer ruled gold, gold ruled Spain. By 1600, the sun still rose over its vast dominion, but its warmth was gone. The banners still flew, but the wind carried the scent of decline. The hymns still echoed, but the faith was hollow. A giant still stood, but its strength was memory, not muscle. And yet, in the eyes of the world, Spain still glittered. That was the cruelest part. No one saw the hunger in its streets, the emptiness behind its glory. Because sometimes, the brightest light hides the deepest shadow. There's a silence that follows too much victory. It isn't peace, it's exhaustion. By the dawn of the 17th century, Spain had conquered half the known world. But the more it conquered, the more fragile it became. The empire stretched farther than its rulers could imagine, from the silver mountains of Peru to the rice fields of the Philippines. Maps struggled to contain it. Messengers died carrying orders no one would read. By the time royal decrees crossed the ocean, the world had already changed. And so, the empire began to govern itself, by instinct, by corruption, by habit. Bureaucracy swelled like a beast with no master. Each clerk invented new forms to sign. Each official demanded new fees. Paper piled higher than castles. Laws contradicted other laws, and gold greased every hinge. Governors acted like kings. Generals grew rich while their soldiers starved. Priests hoarded silver behind altars, whispering prayers through gilded teeth. The empire had become a theater, and everyone was pretending to be rich. But behind the curtain, the truth was unbearable. Ships sank faster than they sailed. Armies marched for causes no one remembered. And the treasury was empty long before the ships even docked. The 80 Years' War with the Dutch bled Spain dry. A war that began in glory turned into a wound that refused to heal. In the north, the Netherlands prospered, merchants, thinkers, inventors, while Spain, their master, drowned in debt. The irony was unbearable. Each new victory came with a heavier price. Each triumph hollowed the empire a little more. Spain was winning battles but losing the war against time. To pay for it all, the crown sold its own future. Fleets of silver were pledged to foreign creditors before they even left America. A storm at sea no longer just sank ships, it sank the hopes of a generation. And when the ships did return, their treasure never touched Spanish soil. It went straight into the hands. Meanwhile, the people of Spain starved. Fields lay barren, abandoned by farmers conscripted into endless wars. Castile, once the empire's beating heart, withered under taxes so cruel that even nobles wept in private. Hunger walked through the villages like a ghost. Famine took the young first, then the old, then the hope. But in Madrid, the music played on. Court dances continued beneath crystal chandeliers. Silk and perfume masked the stench of rot. Every night, the king dined in splendor, while his people prayed for bread. Kings changed, crowns passed, but the song remained the same. Glory will save us, they said. God will not forsake his empire. But glory had turned into burden, and faith had become a chain. Spain's pride, once its armor, now crushed its chest. It could not bend, could not adapt, could not learn. And so, the world moved forward, while Spain stood still. By 1700, the great empire still existed, but only on maps. Its armies were ghosts, its fleets skeletons of wood and memory. Even its faith had hardened, not into strength, but into stubbornness. The world had changed, and Spain refused to see it. The once golden empire had become a shadow, living off the memory of what it used to be. It had conquered the world, but could not conquer itself. Every empire has its sunset, but Spain's didn't end with thunder, it ended with silence. The 18th century crept in quietly, like dawn through cracked stained glass. The mines that once bled silver now groaned empty. The galleons that had once carried fortune across the sea returned half empty, or never returned at all. Storms swallowed ships, pirates waited in the fog, enemies ruled the seas Spain once called its own. At home, hunger walked the streets of Castile. Fields lay bare, not from war, but from weariness. Soil that had once fed empires now yielded only dust. The great cities, Seville, Toledo, Granada, echoed with the footsteps of beggars and soldiers without pay. Spain, once the heartbeat of the world, had become a country of waiting. Waiting for ships that might never come. Waiting for a miracle that would never arrive. The people prayed, the kings promised, and the silence grew heavier. The cathedrals still stood, magnificent, but hollow. Their golden altars shimmered faintly in candlelight, like ghosts remembering the sun. The choirs still sang, but their hymns were slower, thinner, almost broken. Even faith seemed tired. In Madrid, ministers argued over debts that could no longer be counted. Courtiers debated which jewels to sell first. And still, the pride endured, stubborn, shining, empty. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Spain's colonies began to awaken. Buenos Aires, Mexico, Peru, Colombia. The children of empire, born in the shadow of the crown, began to dream of their own light. The blood of rebellion stirred quietly at first, then roared. And one by one, the colonies slipped away, not out of hatred, but inevitability. Each loss was a mirror, each rebellion, a reflection of Spain's own forgotten lessons. It had ruled with fear, not fairness, with conquest, not compassion, with pride, not purpose. And so, when the last fleet failed to return, when the vaults of Seville echoed with nothing but dust, Spain was left with one final treasure, the truth. The truth that gold cannot save a soul, that empires, like men, die when they stop learning, that pride, left unchecked, turns even glory into ruin. But in the ruins something began to stir, a softer kind of strength, a humbler kind of faith. The Spanish people, weathered, wounded, wiser, began to look inward. They found beauty again, not in conquest, but in creation, not in war, but in art, not in empire, but in soul. Pain became perspective, silence became reflection, and from the ashes of arrogance, a nation, smaller, humbler, but human, began to breathe again. The empire was gone, but the people remained, and in that stillness, Spain finally became something gold could never make it: real. History doesn't whisper, it echoes. And Spain's story isn't just history, it's prophecy. A warning carved in gold, sealed in pride, and paid for in blood. The Spanish Empire believed gold could buy eternity, that faith could replace foresight, that conquest could create peace. But the truth, quiet, patient, inevitable, waited beneath every victory. Wealth without understanding becomes weight. Faith without humility becomes blindness. Power without purpose becomes poison. Spain's tragedy wasn't greed, it was illusion. It mistook possession for progress. It built cathedrals for the soul but forgot to feed the body. It conquered oceans but lost the ability to see itself. Every empire faces that same temptation, to believe the applause will never fade, to mistake glory for greatness, to think the gold will last forever. But no empire, no matter how divine it believes itself to be, can escape decay if it forgets why it rose in the first place. Spain teaches us that prosperity without purpose breeds arrogance, that arrogance without reflection breeds ruin, and that ruin, if endured, can teach wisdom no gold can buy. When the fleets stopped coming, Spain did not die, it transformed. It became smaller, yes, but more honest. It rediscovered the beauty of its own people. It learned to build again, with hands instead of crowns. It found art in survival, grace in simplicity, faith in silence. Maybe that's what survival truly is, not holding on to glory, but learning to live beyond it, not worshipping what once was, but cherishing what still is. Spain, the empire of gold, became a nation of soul, and in that transformation lies its greatest triumph. Because history doesn't belong to those who never fall, it belongs to those who rise again. Spain fell, hard, long, and painfully, but from the ruins came something pure, a nation that finally understood what its empire never could, that greatness isn't measured in wealth, it's measured in meaning. So the next time a nation glows too brightly, the next time a people believe their fortune will last forever, the next time a leader promises eternal prosperity, remember Spain. Remember the empire that mistook gold for greatness. Remember how its light blinded even itself. And remember that when the last galleons sank beneath the Atlantic, what truly disappeared wasn't just treasure, it was understanding. But maybe, just maybe, the silence that followed wasn't an ending. Maybe it was the beginning of something wiser, the beginning of a truth whispered through time. That gold is fleeting, but meaning endures. That pride decays, but humility builds. That every empire, no matter how golden, must one day learn to live without its crown. And when that day comes, when the applause fades and only the echo remains, may we remember what Spain forgot, that the real wealth of a nation is never what it owns, but what it learns.